I think it's moved a lot more from technology focused to now, business improvement and how those technologies can help businesses do what they need to do. So I think that's probably been the biggest change over the last sort of 2 or 3 years.
I think the biggest change in the CIO role now is that you're seeing it more and more being core to, say, a business strategy team. So that whatever your industry is, Intel is manufacturing of silicon. It doesn't matter if you're manufacturing textiles, if you're selling other services, or so forth. I think the CIO is now not only trying to get onto the sort of strategy board, they're almost being invited in to bring certain expertise. So that's quite new, that's quite different. It's still hard sometimes to convince the business that you have something to offer in that space. But one of the interesting things that we're seeing now is that some of the topics we've talked about in the past in IT, which haven't necessarily made a lot of sense to the business around data, that's something they're now demanding. So we now have our Chief Marketing Officer in Intel asking IT to sit with him and help him understand how we can offer him insights into his business and his marketplace that he's supporting through some of the data that we're now gathering about how we're supplying our products, where they're buying them, what type of products they're buying. They really want to hear from us on that. That gives us then, I think, the in to then play an even wider role and demonstrate that being a CIO, being an IT leader is not just a technical service role, it's a partnership role. And I think changing from service to partnership is what that biggest change is.
I think the way that businesses are looking to technology is changing. It's becoming much more part of the furniture, and therefore the CIO are just focusing on technology and systems and not on information, not on corporate change and cultural change. I think that's where it's changing. So much more, certainly within our business, IT is seen as the function that is the engine of a lot of our change programs, not just our technology programs. So I think seeing that bigger piece and also making sure that we're playing a bigger role in guiding the business rather than just responding to the changes the business thinks it wants to make.
So I would argue that it is about being more strategic. I would argue that it's also about not necessarily what you can do yourself. It's more about how you can partner, create good partnerships with companies, not necessarily just to deliver services, but also to invent new services and to collaborate on the design of those services. I would argue it's about making sure that you're not just relevant to your company, but that you are totally transparent. And I think this idea that the IT was sort of squirreled away in the corner is completely of the past. And one of the things that I major on really is complete transparency and giving the businesses choice. So I see my job as being able to help the business do better business with their customers. And whatever we have to do that, we will. And invariably that involves choice, it involves helping the business sometimes pay more for things, not necessarily always less, but at the end of the day that we are really coaching them and mentoring them in terms of making choice. So I think, to answer your question very specifically, I don't think it's about being a super expert and, the only one that knows about the technology. I think it's much more about creating a conversation with the business and creating a much more collaborative relationship with them in terms of choices, in terms of transparency, and in terms of multi-year planning.